Welcome to the Immigration Therapist Podcast. It's a podcast for therapists wanting to learn about immigration evaluations and for immigration attorneys. On today's episode, I want to talk about myself. I want to talk about who I am, my credentials, and why I got started with immigration evaluations in the first place. So, my name is Najla Sallum, and I'm a LCSW here in Florida, and I'm an immigrant. I am Brazilian, born and raised in Brazil, and I migrated here when I was 12 with my family, with my mom, my dad, my brother. We, like many therapist stories, immigrants' stories, we came here just for a few months. The goal was to just spend a few months, learn English, and then return to our country. But we ended up staying, and here we are. Here I am, 20 plus years later. So a little background on why I started working with immigration evaluations. It actually all started when because I've always wanted to be a therapist, always. I've loved psychology, since forever. And it's a funny story. In college, I dabbled a little bit with other majors because I thought I wanted to do something else. I thought, well, it's going to take forever to graduate after my internship and all of that, So I tried accounting, but God, was that a mistake? That was not for me at all. So I focused on my major of psychology. So my bachelor's is in psychology and my master's is in clinical social work. So like I was saying, I've always wanted to be a therapist. It's always been very fascinating to me, psychology and after I became a therapist, after I graduated with my master's, I started working for an agency. And around the same time, funny enough, my best friend was going through law school. And we graduated and became licensed around the same time. She was going through law school and I was going to grad school. So she started working with an immigration attorney. And she was the one who introduced me to immigration evaluations. She's also an immigrant. She's also Brazilian. So the interesting part was that even though we have very similar stories, my best friend and I, and we've been here since we were little, same thing, brought by our parents, and stayed within the Brazilian community for the most part, and we wanted to work in the community. I mean, it was part of who we were. What I didn't mention, actually, was that I was brought here and we ended up becoming illegal, my family and I. We became undocumented. We used to travel back and forth between here and Brazil to update our visa. But then my dad got sick. He just developed this really serious illness, and we couldn't do that anymore. It was just an awful situation for our family and for my dad, obviously. So we ended up becoming undocumented. So this happened sometime in high school, around 9th grade. And we became undocumented. So that was my story. I remember driving without a license, applying for college, not even know if I was going to be able to get in because I didn't have, I wasn't legal. Back then there was no DACA. So it's, you did what you could. Thankfully, I was able to attend college as an international student. I was considered an international student, but really that was language for undocumented. And I ended up, obtaining my bachelor's in psychology. And around that time, thankfully, we were able to adjust our status in the country. We were able to become legal, my family and I. Then I went to grad school, and by the time I graduated grad school, full circle now, going back to what I started with, my best friend, the attorney, she started working with immigration law. And at their office, they needed a therapist. I think they had a therapist already, but I don't know. I don't think they liked her or something. And my best friend talked to me about the opportunity. She said, you know, you should really look into this. And we started talking about it, and I was all for it. I mean, I'm an immigrant. I mean, I remained in the Brazilian community. I've seen myself as half and half American, half Brazilian. And I was like, why not? This sounds amazing, you know? I've always thought about like giving back to our community somehow, so why not? So she started kind of coaching me through the process of writing immigration evaluations. Um, just to make something clear, she didn't tell me how to write clients' cases. She started teaching me from their perspective what they needed. Basically, she started teaching me what immigration evaluations are all about, and based on what they needed. And that's how I learned how to write immigration evaluations. That on top of me, my doing research, looking up immigration forms, and also based on my own experience. I mean, I went through the whole experience of, being undocumented and having an immigration case, having people in my family actually that were deported, and applying for a green card. Actually, at that time, I think I had already applied for my citizenship, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, I was all about. I knew everything that had to do with immigration because of my own case and my family's case. So that's what happened. I started doing immigration evaluations sometime in 2016, and I never took a course. Never took a course. I know currently there are a couple courses out there on immigration evaluations. I think they offer CEUs, but they're not actually official. And I don't say this to put those courses down at all. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's no official organization dedicated for immigration evaluations. There's no like for example, the Gottman Institute for couples therapy, the EMDR IA for EMDR therapy. There's nothing like that. So, there's a lot of absence of information on immigration evaluations. There's only people like, therapists like me who are starting to talk about it. And they, I know of two therapists out there that have put out courses on immigration evaluations, but that's it. So my point is I never really took a course. I just learned about it by writing it. And obviously I had my friend who talked to me about immigration evaluations. So that's how I got involved with immigration evals. So fast forward to today. Today is March 20th, 2023. I still work with immigration evals, but on a very large scale. I'd say it's half of my practice. I do see clients. I see kids, adolescents, adults. But half of my caseload is immigration evals. I mean, I absolutely love it. I love doing immigration evaluations because it kind of keeps me rooted. It brings me back to my roots. It reminds me of, whenever I hear a person's story, I hear myself. I remember myself. I remember what it's like to drive without a license. I remember what it's like to you see the police driving by and you're like, oh my God, I hope they don't stop me. So it's very personal to me. And I know what a lot of people might be thinking right now, what about countertransference? As we learn in grad school, it's something you have to check at the door. You have to really have boundaries, and you have to really be client-centered. And immigrations evaluations is just that. I mean, I'm just very passionate about it because I can feel in every eval I write, in every assessment, I feel the person's situation, and I feel how I can help them, So it's why I do it. It's how I got involved, and it's how I do it. So today, we talked a little bit about who I am and my credentials and why I got started in the first place. I'll see you next week.